What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Go ahead, pull up a seat. Let's have a little chat, shall we? Today, as I'm recording this, GrayZone Warfare has officially released to PC, and there's a lot that I want to talk about as far as what to expect, what feels good, what needs work, and most importantly, is it worth supporting right now? I'll do my best to keep everything cohesive and in order, but no promises. Without wasting any more time, if you enjoy what you see today, be sure to sub to the channel, and let's get right on with it. Right, so starting off, I want to say that this is nowhere near the time that I thought it would take for this game to come out. I was expecting about 3 more months left in the oven, 1 more playtest, and then the release. In fact, I would have rather preferred that because the second the game launched, there were issues. But I'm not gonna dog on them for that because they've been quick to get things patched, updated, etc. They just released a hotfix while I was recording this, and one of the things that they patched was the fact that people would spawn in without heads. It was the funniest thing to see. Oh my god, he doesn't have a head. Oh god, buddy.
That ain't good.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good. You good?
However, that doesn't change the fact that we got milli rocked into this release, and while I'm glad to see it here, I do want to point out that this is an early access title. I'm not expecting perfection, but I am expecting improvements from what I played in the playtest. There is one thing that I want to add real quick before we get into the gist of the video. Everything that I'm going to be discussing today as far as feedback goes is solely for the purpose of making this game better. I genuinely believe that this is one of the most polished early access titles we've gotten. So to kick things off, one of the biggest things that creators were worried about, including myself, were the servers, right? How bad would they be impacted? Would this cause the game to be unplayable? Well, personally, I didn't have much of an issue. I know at launch there were a ton of issues on the EU servers and the queue times were kind of long and kind of ridiculous. And as I'm recording this at like 9 o'clock at night, the US servers are just completely fucking slammed. So yeah, they didn't really anticipate that many people playing their game. But by the time you watch this, hopefully everything is ironed out. So aside from an infrastructure standpoint, what else can we expect? Well, let me tell you, at the start of the game, you have to choose one of 3 factions. For the love of God, if you're going to play with one of your friends or your favorite creator, know what faction they are ahead of time because at the time of me recording this, there is no way to change it unless a wipe happens. I don't know if MadFinger is going to be doing this, but maybe having a screen that tells you, hey, don't continue unless you're 100% sure you and the people you're playing with are in the same faction, it would be a nice addition. But once you drop in, you're going to get tasked with your starting quest for your factions in the beginning areas. And if you're Mithras, W Mithras by the way, you're going to start out in Namthaven. And guys, let me offer you a bit of advice, okay? Use this time to stock up on AKs and the ammo. You better be the fucking Hank Hill of AKs and AK accessories because if you're new to these kinds of games, the AI are going to run your pockets. If you're not new or you played in the last playtest, you know that there's just an abundance of ammo just laying around. And before I forget, this game comes packed with 150 quests at launch. If you manage to stay bored or you manage to not find anything to do, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. Speaking of the AI, MadFinger thankfully adjusted the TTK of them, and from a personal standpoint, this makes the game really enjoyable. Don't get me wrong, some of them are still beefy. Hell, some of them will turn into scarecrows when they die. But being able to one-tap a scav in the head and see that son of a bitch fold like a laundry hamper is quite nice. Performance. This is the biggest part of the game that people are just having the worst amount of luck with. And I don't blame them. The requirements are a bit nutty. The minimum requirements of this game was the graphics card I had in my build like a year or 2 ago. A Radeon 5700. Definitely an old card, but not one that's outdated by any stretch of the imagination. Hell, you can run a lot of games on a 5700 today. Maybe not all of them, and they may not look great, but hey, you can at least run them. And one thing I'll say is that this game is a fucking glutton, but not based on the file size, but based on what it takes to run. Thankfully, I don't have that many issues aside from the shaders loading, the occasional frame dip. I'm still having this weird ass issue where my shadows will flicker, but I'm glad FSR has came in clutch for this sort of thing. And I know that over time, this is going to be able to run flawlessly without the need of FSR, but I'm glad that we have it as a tool now. It's not a permanent fix, but it is something. So when we look at the gameplay, it's roughly the same thing that I played in the creator playtest, right? A lot of these same systems are still in place, but Some of them have been improved. What I love is that there's a dedicated PvEVP and PvE mode that will share progression across each other. There's some concern of that causing some unbalancing when switching back and forth between the modes, but MadFinger has already said that if there's some issues with that, they'll go in and make some balancing changes. But if you guys are looking out for that, good news, this game has it. There's still not that much loot on the map, but there is some new stuff here and there. Once they get this whole server thing situated, I would love to see them add a little bit more variety with the loot. Questing feels great either solo or with a squad in my opinion. I can't tell you how many times my squad would see someone run up and ask for help, or they would offer some sort of assistance. Not to say that this game doesn't have its moments with griefers, because it's bound to happen. It's happened to one of my buddies already. But I believe MadFinger have an idea of what they're doing to combat that, and the only way that we're gonna find out is in due time. Now, I want to give sort of a final thoughts approach to this last part, and then follow it up with the golden question: should you buy now or wait? For my final thoughts, I love this game. Okay, even in its current state, I think this game is doing so much good shit that even if you don't invest into it now, you're going to want to in the future for sure. I know that GrayZone has had a rough start, okay? I'm not oblivious. I've seen the reviews. But if you're going to base the game's future off of what we saw today, I kind of encourage you to think about it a little bit differently. The reason I say this is because there are a certain group of people that are going to look at the reviews, see the performance issues, see that there are glitches, and they automatically think that is going to carry into 1.0. And if you know early access, you know that word has seemingly lost all meaning and all credibility. But there are devs that come in and try to restore some context back to that word, and I feel like that's what MadFinger is trying to do at the very least. Now, is that a good reason why this game has had issues on day one? In my opinion, not really. Because there was a ton of us that said, wait, keep working on it for a month or two, open it back up and see where we're at. Then again, you can never expect a problem-free launch even if a game has spent years in development, so could things have changed if they would have waited? Maybe. Also, could the fact that BSG fumbled with Tarkov motivate them to push this out the door a little bit more? I mean, possibly. I know that they've had this date in mind since the closed playtest in March, but the Tarkov situation unintentionally put a lot of eyes onto this game. From a marketing standpoint, it makes sense. All right, but from an execution standpoint, we got a little bit of some turbulence here. I'm also gonna throw this in here. If you bought this game just to spite Battle State, stop. That is incredibly dumb. And if anything, the last thing MadFinger needs to do is go on Twitter and entertain these reviews of people calling GrayZone a Tarkov clone or referencing Tarkov in any way. Y'all just gotta focus on the critical reviews, okay? The ones that'll actually help you grow your player base and keep the lights on for your company. And I wanna be as upfront as I can with you guys, okay? People are going to fucking troll you in the reviews. And if you let that shit get to you, they're gonna exploit that and get a reaction. There have been tons of devs before y'all that decided to attack these critiques head on in a public platform, and it does nothing but burn them in the end. Now, the golden question: should you buy this game right now? For those that don't mind seeing the game grow over time, for those that want to support these devs in making a game that does a fantastic job establishing itself in the space, go for it. If you're a fan of these kinds of games and have the specs for it, buy the standard edition, and if you see yourself falling in love with it more and more, upgrade from there. After that, the only thing that you'll need to do is just pay the difference. However, if you're not okay with a game having performance issues, and if you're not okay with a game constantly needing updates, I would wait. And honestly, there's nothing shameful about waiting on a game to get its bearings before you invest into it. That's why it's in an early access state at least, but also keep your standards realistic. I feel like we gotta give the studio some respect as well, right? Because they came from making mostly mobile games, which are really hard to do in and of itself. They go from making games like Dead Trigger 2, which border on the line of like a linear zombie first-person shooter, to making a sort of open world, persistent, tactical milsim first-person shooter. There could have been a plethora of reasons why this game launched in its current state and this soon. And at the end of the day, only they will know, and when they're ready to tell us, they'll tell us. But I do think that we gotta put some respect on MadFinger for making a game this ambitious given their prior history. I'm gonna keep playing the game, I'm gonna keep supporting the game and making content about it because I believe in the studio, I believe in the project, and if you're here for it, I appreciate it. But now I turn the mic to you. Let me know down below what you think about GrayZone Warfare. And while you're down there, consider smashing that like button and looting that sub button also YouTube can show you my content free of charge. And if you want to support more GrayZone content and see the videos before anyone else for just 99 cents a month, you can get your name on the wall, sneak peeks at other videos, and more. Shout out to the current members of the channel. Y'all are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. This is Sir Blackout signing off to listen to Fortunate Son while flying in a helicopter. This shit's magical, man. Later.